welcome to the Badhumanist look at the Outlaw Rogue. Now, the Outlaw Rogue is going to be the first of the three Rogue specs that I take a look at here. It was a spec that I played a little bit of in Legion, so I have some familiarity with, but didn't play it too much. So first we're going to talk about the overall passive and abilities that are in the base kits for this spec for Outlaw. Talk about DPS cooldowns, how it feels in its base set. We'll then go on and talk about the talents, synergy between talents. We'll talk about the usefulness of the talents. Are they fun? How do they look? How do they appear? I'm going to show you what some of these abilities look like. Moving on past that, I will then talk about stats. Again, not necessarily what the stat rankings are going to be for Outlaw Rogue, more a sense of just how do these stats interact, what things are going to be affected by these stats, are there any kind of interesting synergies there with certain kind of stats. And we're going to end here with an overall summary. I'm going to basically give you my summary, give you my ideas of how I feel the spec plays currently in BfA, and any changes that I might want to make, or wishes I should say, for this spec. Okay, so let's go into our spell book here. So first things first, going over the passives, we have Ruthlessness. So again, your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to grant a combo point. Now, again, at 5 combo points, it means a 100% chance to get 1 combo point afterwards. It should be noted if you're taking a certain talent DS later on that I'll talk about, where you actually have 6 combo points, it gives you a 100% chance for 1 and a 20% chance to gain 2 combo points. Okay, so again, there is still some effectiveness of taking the talent with Ruthlessness. Again, just every once in a while, about every 20% basically, you will gain a second combo point if you have 6 instead of 5 combo points. Restless Blades comes next, so your finishing moves reduce the remaining cooldown of Adrenaline Rush between the eyes, Sprint, Grappling Hook, Mark for Death, and Vanish by 1 second. There's other abilities that are on there as well. So for example, Ghostly Strike, which is a talent, is also on there as well. And again, I believe that there might be some other talents again that would be included as well, and I'll talk about those when we get to those. Moving on, the Mastery here. So your main hand attacks have a 30% chance to trigger an attack with your offhand that deals 1472 physical damage. So again, the damage is just set in there. Again, your main hand attacks have a chance to trigger an attack. It should be noted that for some reason, on the beta currently, I have to wear fist weapons. So if I try to equip a dagger into my main hand, it won't work. Right? So if I take my character out and I put this in, the ability goes away and it says requires a one-handed melee weapon. Last time I checked, the dagger was a one-handed melee weapon, but beta, right? So more than likely, we're going to have to see whether or not, because of this, if having a faster weapon might help, because it does seem as if that damage is scaling a bit off of, is not scaling off of weapon damage. Again, you can see it's 1447 when I have the one-handed one. Again, if I switch my offhand to dagger as well, same damage there. So the mastery damage is not anything that matters as far as your weapon speed is concerned. So maybe having a faster weapon could somewhat help there, because again, every attack has that 30% chance. Fleet-footed passive, your movement speed is increased by 50% and you take reduced falling damage. That's nice, it happens all the time. Next passive here, this increases your energy generation by 35%, and your offhand attacks have a 75% chance to generate 10 energy. Now, I've played around a little bit with a slower, obviously very slow, main hand, faster offhand, and also with just 2 slower, and I couldn't really tell much of a difference in overall damage or feel. You definitely notice that with a faster offhand that you get more procs of this, but again, your melee damage does go down a good bit. So it's going to be like a balance between those two as far as which one ends up being better. But that now is something we have to think about. Again, artifact weapons are no longer a thing, so we have to be thinking about what kind of weapons are we going to be wanting here. Moving past the passives into the abilities here, Vanish is still here, 2-minute cooldown. Vanish is off the GCD, by the way, which is very nice, so you can vanish in the combat off the GCD. Trix still here. I wasn't able to test whether or not Trix was on or off the GCD. I'm sure you can look that up elsewhere. Again, I don't have anyone else to Trix to be able to test that with. Stealth. Stealth is stealth. Sprint, 1 minute cooldown, increases your movement speed by 70%. Again, this is also off the GCD. Cinder Strike is your main builder here. So again, visually strikes an enemy, causing X damage. It has a 35% chance to hit an additional time, making your next pistol shot half cost and double damage. Now this is important, and I'll talk about when I get the pistol shot, but basically this makes it so that when you get a free proc of pistol shot, you always want to use it. It will do more damage than a Cinder Strike, and in fact it does quite good damage, I might put out as well. So again, the fact that it's half cost, so the cost goes down to 20 energy, and it's doing equal if not greater damage to Cinder Strike, is definitely going to make it a worthwhile proc to hit, which feels good. Try to concealment's still there. Sap still there. Roll the Bones, is also here as well. I'll talk about this in more detail. This is obviously the centerpiece of the Outlaw Rogue. And when we get into the kind of combat and such, I'll talk a bit more about how it feels. But it's there, lasts longer based upon combo points. 6 combo points increases it up to 42 seconds. Pause still there, 2 minute cooldown. Pistol shot, as I mentioned, you don't want to ever really hit it unless you have that proc, the opportunity proc it's called. Without that, it's not worth the energy or the damage cost. Again, it does reduce movement speed. And again, it does still add a combo point, but in general, you only want to hit it when you have that improved proc, if you will. Pickpocket's still there, Picklock's still there. This is the talent, I'll talk about that in a bit. Kick. Grappling Hook is now baseline. So again, you can kind of see here, Grappling Hook, you place where you want to go, and you go there. So very nice, I'm glad that's built in. I never actually took that talent before, and now it's nice to just kind of have it. Gosh, still there. Feint, it should be noted that I believe Feint was nerfed a bit from live from Legion. Again, I can't confirm that. I didn't really play a rogue that much at the end of the expansion, but I have heard that it has been nerfed a bit. Distract, still there. Dispatch is now your finisher. So again, finishing move, right, dealing damage per combo point. Again, you can see that each extra combo points can do another 741 damage. So again, at 6 combo points, it ends up being right around 4,400 or so. Crimson Vial is here, 30-second, heals you. Cloak of Shadows is still here. Again, 2 minute cooldown. Cheap Shot, still there. Blind, still there. Now, Blade Fury is interesting. It's been changed. So previously it was a toggle on or off, and when it was on, you had reduced energy regeneration rates, but your targets hit everything else. Now, if I go over here to our kind of grouped up targets, it's a 15 energy, 25-second recharge, and it lasts for 15 seconds, where basically all single target attacks also strike all nearby. I like this change a lot. I think that it's a better situation. You don't lose the energy gen, so you can basically still do your full rotation, but you have these windows, 15-second windows, again, with 2 charges, that you can kind of boost it up. So, for example, if I'm, hitting, a target here like so, and then I Blade Fury, and I do this again, it'll hit all of them, right? And so you can see how in my combat log over here that you had these Blade Fury hits with the melee hit, right? And it's doing about half of that damage there. So that's nice. I like that change. It kind of sucked having to toggle on and off in situations and forgetting to toggle off and losing energy regen. So I like the fact that it's just an ability. Now, again, it is on the GCD, but again, I definitely think it has a good return there. Between the Eyes, this is another finisher. Again, it does less damage and it does have a cooldown than your normal finisher Dispatch, but just like as currently, it deals 4 times normal damage when it crits. So there might be some crit points, or again, as I talk about Roll for the Bones later, there might be a Roll for the Bones proc or something that makes it so you would actually want to use this as a finisher just to kind of basically be gambling for those crits, because if it crits, it does a lot of damage. Ambush is still there. Again, 50 energy, gives you 2 combo points. You can use it out of stealth. Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be your opener. And then Adrenaline Rush is our main cooldown, 3 minute cooldown, increases your energy regeneration rate by 60% and your attack speed by 20% for 20 seconds. It's a nice cooldown. It's on the GCD, but again, it's the same as it was before. You really do feel powerful. I found that, and again, I'll talk about this more at the end, but I found that Outlaw had a very rhythmic nature to it in its rotation, And the adrenaline rush kind of like played with that because you do feel the extra energy. You feel the ability like you can go faster, and that was actually a very nice feeling. So I think it's a very good feeling cooldown. Of course, it does do pretty good damage, of course, as well. Okay, so looking at our talents now. So in the top row here, we have Weapon Master. So Sinister Strike has a 10% increased chance to strike additional time. Now, to my knowledge, that will, in a way, affect with anything else that Sinister Strike hits. So again, anything that procs off Sinister Strike, the extra free one, you can also get those procs as well off of. So that's very nice. You have Quick Draw here, which is half cost uses of the pistol shot. So basically, those empowered procs are not free anymore, but the empowered procs of pistol shot grant an extra combo point and deal 50% additional damage. The damage is nice; it's already doing good damage. However, the additional combo point I found to be clunky. I found that with either 5 or 6 combo points, I constantly felt as if I was having to hold that proc off to not waste a charge of it. And again, it might be a thing where you're going to basically be wasting it anyway just to get more finishers out. Again, I'm not exactly quite sure how the min-max damage will be played in this spec, but I can say that it's just one of those things where I consistently, for some reason, got procs when I already had, 4 combo points or 5 combo points when I had 6, and it feels bad to use it and know you're basically wasting one of those procs. So that was one thing that, again, felt really weird, especially because when you use a 5 combo or above finisher, you're guaranteed to start with 1. So in that case, it wasn't too bad to where if I, hit Sinister Strike and got, 1, then got 2, and I got a free then proc that gives me 2 more, then I can hit 1. So it's one of those weird things where sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't, but it felt a bit clunky. Ghostly Strikes is the other option here. Strikes an enemy, dealing X damage and causing the target to take 10% increased damage from your abilities. Now, this is increased damage from your abilities for 10 seconds. So, again, it's increasing the majority of your damage for 10 seconds. Previously, it was just a debuff, and it had no cooldown. It now has a cooldown, 35 seconds. I actually like it. Some people might see that as a nerf because you used to be able to have it up 100% of the time. I think it makes this row more competitive, which I think was part of their point, but also it's less management, right? That's one less weak you have to worry about. That's one less thing where basically you just hit it off cooldown, primarily hitting it, before you're going to get a finisher out to kind of really help buff that finisher. But yeah, I actually like this change. It might be or look like a nerf, but again, I'm not worried about the damage right now. I'm more worried about how it feels, how it plays. 30 row is your choice. I always like acrobatic strikes because I'm horrible at melee, and so giving me 3 extra yards of wiggle room where I'm not out of range of the target I found to be very valuable. But again, it's a personal preference row. Retractable Hook reduces the cooldown grappling by 30 seconds. Hit and Run just increases all your movement speed by 15%. Again, I'm sure that there's going to be some value in all of these. It should be noted, by the way, that acrobatic strikes also increases the range for Blade Fury. So again, it does help increase that a bit. So that actually is a pretty nice benefit in regards to your kind of cleave AoE ability to have that extra range on those. 45 row, interesting row. So Mark of Death's been moved up to this row. I should note it's 1 minute cooldown, but off the GCD, which I think is very nice. Marks the target instantly, generating 5 combo points. Cooldown is reset if the target dies within a minute. So again, if it target dies before the cooldown comes up, you get it gets reset, and it's always just going to give you 5 combo points. So that's nice, right? You can start off with a finisher. Again, anytime where you have ads, you can kind of cheat it off of. It can be very valuable there as well. Other than that, though, I thought that in fights where you're not going to be able to proc that, I don't like it as much as the other two. So our next talent here is Deeper Stratagem. So you may have a maximum of 6 combo points. Your finishing moves consume all 6, and your finishing moves deal 5% increased damage. So not only do you gain the damage that you would from getting a 6 combo point, but all your finishers also just do 5% increased damage. So even at 5 combo points, they're doing more damage than they would without this talent. So it's important to keep that note. This feels fine. Honestly, I found very little difference between Vigor and Deeper. In general, I would say that I think Vigor might end up being a little bit better, but again, it's really down to tuning and how you feel. I would say that I probably also felt like Vigor felt better because you're just getting more finishers out more frequently, because you only have 5 combo points, you're doing it more. So I did a little bit of napkin math here, and it looks like right now Vigor currently in current scaling is having about a 10% increase in how it's scaling with your finishers. So basically, for example, again, these are made up numbers here, but if you think about how many finishers you can get into a minute, again, with DS, you're going to have less finishers, but each finisher is going to be stronger. And with Vigor, you're going to have more, but each are going to be less. And when you kind of do the math on that, find the difference, Vigor still comes out a little bit ahead. So the frequency you're getting them out is making up for the lack of extra strength you gain from that 6 combo point. So right now, currently, and again, that could very easily change with different scaling, different gear, but at this point, again, it does look like Vigor is a little bit better. And to be honest with you, I like the extra energy. I like the regeneration. It makes the spec feel better. You have more energy. You don't have much downtime. I like it. I had a lot of downtime with Deeper. And so, yeah, Vigor also, in my mind, felt better. 60 rows, your own choice. Cheat Death is Cheat Death. You know it's going to be very strong. Elusiveness, so again, same as before, Feint reduces all damage you take by 30%. Again, I believe this has been nerfed from 40%. Maybe even more. Iron Stomach increases the healing you receive from Crimson Vial, healing potions, and Hellstones. So again, that could be very nice as well. I mean, Cheat Death, I think, really strong, though. 75 row. So you have Dirty Tricks, so Cheap Shot, Gouge, and Satin don't cost energy. This can be very valuable, right? A free of those abilities can be very useful. Blinding Powder reduces the cooldown of Blind by 30 seconds and increases its range. So that's nice. So again, now Blind would have a 30-yard range. Prey on the Weak, so enemies disabled by your Cheap Shot or Between the Eyes take 10% increased damage from all sources. So this is nice because, again, Between the Eyes, which I didn't mention and I should have, if you go back to Between the Eyes here, one of the other things it does is it does stun. And again, it's the length of the stun has to do with how many combo points. So if you can hit a target that can actually be stunned, that enemy will take 10% increased damage from all sources. So that's everybody, not just you, but everybody. So again, in Mythic Pluses and in a situation in an array where you can actually stun like an ad or something, yeah, that's going to be valuable. So again, it's the only one that has that kind of direct DPS increase. Technically speaking, Dirty Tricks can by saving you energy, but you get the point. 90 row. Loaded Dice. Activating Adrenaline Rush causes your next roll of the bones to grant at least 2 matches. So I felt that this talent was a bit lackluster because it's only your next. And you do hit Adrenaline Rush a lot because, again, it is reduced not only by that passive, but, again, you can still get True Bearing, which basically doubles that effect where every finisher is going to basically reduce your cooldowns by 10 seconds or 12 if you take DS. So you do get Adrenaline Rush back relatively quickly. It's not really a 3-minute cooldown. It's far less than that. That's nice, but I was getting a pretty fair number of 2 rolls even without this talent. And so I don't know how much is actually going to benefit you. And the fact that you lose one of the other 2 things, which, again, I think is a pretty big loss, I think it's going to hurt Loaded Dice. If it could grant you a guaranteed, 4 match, right? If it could guarantee you the lottery, that might be really nice. It might be too strong right now, but again, maybe you could tune that. But I think that, yeah, I think currently just granting the 2 matches, I'm getting enough 2 matches where I don't know if it's going to benefit you that much from getting that guaranteed one. Next, the same thing as before. It's a little bit changed from live. So now your finishing moves have, again, 20% chance per combo point to grant 3% haste for 20 seconds, that can to 5 times. Now, this works the same way where if you have 6 combo points, you technically have a 100% chance to grant 3% haste, and again, you have 20% to kind of grant another one. I never actually really noticed that actually happening, however, it could have been my luck. But in general, you're only going to have to worry about it 5 times. So it stacks 5 times, and you get the 15% increased haste. I had no problem keeping this up. It's up 100% of the time. In fact, if I go back to one of my training dummy aura things here, where I actually took it. I didn't take it there. Let me find one where I actually took it. Here we go. Yeah, 98% uptime, right? So you can see that here. 98% uptime on that. So no real problem with that. And that feels good. Having that extra haste feels good. Having extra energy feels good. I'm a kind of player who doesn't like downtime. I know some people maybe actually like not being GCD capped, but Outlaw has a nice cadence to it, and again, I like the little bit quicker pace that this gives. Now, Slice and Dice is a very similar thing. Finishing moves that consumes combo points to increase attack speed by 60% and energy regeneration by 15%. Lasts longer per combo point. Again, you can see here that it is scaling up to 36 seconds. Again, you can, if you have DS, this does go up, I believe, to like 42, if I remember correctly. So yeah, so those are very nice. And they both do very similar things. I found that when I took Slice and Dice, it felt very similar to this. You just lose Roll of the Bones. And I have to be honest, I was not a fan of the original Roll of the Bones. I thought that the re-rolling gameplay just felt horrible, and to feel so unlucky to get a number of one stacks is pretty bad. They've done a decent job, I think, balancing Roll of the Bones. I think that each buff, there's some buffs that I think I prefer more than others, but in general, I don't think we're going to be really re-rolling too much. We'll have to find out. You might basically roll early on some of them, basically not let them go all the way to their entire duration, but instead basically wait till a pandemic, which is right around 12 seconds or so, to then refresh to try to get a better one. I'll also say that that plan of refreshing your Roll the Bones at a higher time to gain extra, I think, have a benefit, because here's a scenario basically where, let's say you have 10 seconds left on Roll the Bones on your buff, and you hit Roll the Bones again, you get that 10 seconds added on. Well, what if your next roll is a double stack? Guess what? Those two buffs now get 10 extra seconds. So it's one of those things where if you have a one buff, you might be basically rolling it a bit early. Now, probably not all the way at 12 seconds, but probably closer to like 6 to 10 seconds would be my estimation here. Because again, if you do get a 2 buff stack Roll the Bones, or if you get really lucky, a 4. I never got a 4, by the way. I was testing for hours and never got 4. But I got 2 a lot, and I did find that if you were pandemicking, you got the extra time on both buffs. So again, that plan might be something we'll have to find out as far as min-maxing that might be useful here. Slice and Dice, again, it feels good, but I think that this talent with then having Roll the Bones is a better one. It's just passive, don't worry about hitting it. And Roll the Bones feels good. Like when you get those changes in rotation, you get those changes in the buffs, and I'll talk about those buffs here in a second. It feels really, really good. Last row here, we have Dancing Steel, so increases the duration of Blade Fury by 3 seconds and its damage by 5%. What that means is the damage, again, I already have this talent currently. It normally is 45% of normal damage, and with this talent it becomes 50, so it just adds on the 5%. Blade Rush, interesting ability. So you charge the target with your blades out, dealing a good bit of damage, and anything nearby gets hit as well. If you have Blade Fury active, damage to your non-primary target, so this is only for times when you have more than one target, that's increased by 100%, so basically doubled. You can use it in melee, by the way, so let me go ahead and actually talent into this. So for example, if you're here, let me put this on my bar. Oh, I know what the problem is. Yeah, there we go, it's on my bar. Cool. So if I can go ahead, again, it only has a 20-yard range. I can go charge in, right, and then get to my combat. It should be known, as I mentioned, that you can do this still in melee. So again, you can use the ability. You don't move at all, which is nice. So you stand still, but you still do the damage. Now, interesting thing about this ability is it gives you 25 energy over 5 seconds. So it's actually a way of generating more energy over a short period of time. It does not grant a combo point, however. So do know, we're so used to thinking abilities granting us or spending combo points. This has no effect on combo points. It just grants 25 energy. 45-second cooldown. This ability is reduced by that passive. So again, if you look at your, where is it here? Relentless Blades passive, again, if you have a 5 combo point, this gets reduced by 5 seconds. It should be noted that Ghostly Strikes is also reduced by that passive, and Killing Spree, which I'm going to talk about next, is reduced by that passive. I don't believe Mark for Death is, but I could be wrong about that. But I know for sure Blade Rush, Killing Spree, Ghostly Strikes all are, as well as Adrenaline Rush, Sprint, Vanish, and a number of the other kind of cooldowns we have between the eyes as well. So yeah, Killing Spree is Killing Spree. You teleport to an enemy within 10 yards. Again, I'll show you this here. So here's the target. You have to be a little bit closer. There we go. Again, only a 10-yard range. You hit the ability, you jump around, you do your thing, and you come back to where you started. Right, so wherever you started, you will land again. Again, nice ability, does good damage. Surprisingly enough, when I'm looking at Blade Rush and Killing Spree, Killing Spree, the fact that it takes up 2 seconds, it's basically a channeled ability, if you can want to think about it in those terms. Because Rogue has a 1 second GCD, it's basically 2 GCDs that it's taking in one ability, and it does a lot of damage, right? My kind of like average damage per time that I would hit it is double what like a normal finisher would be. But the fact that it takes up 2, if you think about the fact that Blade Rush you can use basically like 2 2/3 times for every Killing Spree, and these are both reduced by the passive that I mentioned. And so again, they're not really these lengths, right? You actually can Blade Rush far sooner than 45 seconds and Killing Spree far sooner than 2 minutes. But the fact that, again, you get multiple Blade Rushes per Killing Spree, the extra damage this does, plus the extra focus it does, I think might be a greater benefit than Killing Spree currently. They could simply just up the damage, of course. For AoE, I'm unsure. It's going to be very nice, for sure, to be able to kind of Blade Fury around and hit all these abilities. It also has that same effect of, if Blade Fury is active, it hits all nearby for 100%. So again, in those windows, these are both very strong abilities. One of these two are going to be the best. Again, if there's a fight where you're just going to basically be trying to Blade Fury the whole thing, Dancing Steel can be very valuable, of course. But again, for traditional, like, normal boss rating, we'll have to, of course, see what the bosses look like. I do think one of these two, I honestly do believe that Blade Rush is probably going to be the one that you would want to go with here. So the last thing I want to talk about before getting into the overall rotation here, so again, let me go and find the dummy test that I wanted to look at here. Here we go. So I wanted to talk about the Roll the Bones and the different buffs that come off of it. And then I might have to go to multiple things to find them all here. So True Bearing is still around. It's a finishing move that reduces the cooldown of those same abilities by 1 second. It basically doubles that passive. Okay, so instead of 1 second per combo point, it's now 2. So again, if you have, like I mentioned before, 5 combo points, it would be a 10-second reduction. If you have 6, it's a 12-second reduction. Broadsides, your combo point generating abilities generate 1 additional combo point and deal 20% increased damage for the duration of Roll the Bones. So again, this is combo generating abilities. Grant one other. Now, I will say that this, again, was one where if I took this with quick shots, again, quick shots being the giving yourself an extra combo point on your free quick draws, or not free, but reduced quick draws, it felt really weird because you're getting just too many combo points from abilities and you're going over way too frequently. So I think there actually might be some negative synergy. I could be entirely wrong, but that's just how it felt to me. Without that, however, I did feel that this was an ability that liked the 6 combo points. It actually felt good because, again, you could basically get to 6 pretty quick and get the benefit, of course, of those stronger and longer lasting finishers. Let's see. Shark Infested Waters is here. Increases critical strike chance by 25% for the duration of Roll the Bones. This is the ability I was talking about that I think with, depending on how crit numbers end up. So again, right here, I'm right around 30% crit. So with this, I'm above 55% crit. I didn't do the math yet on this, but I would believe at that crit level that the chance to get a crit on Between the Eyes would make it worthwhile to use over Dispatch while this is up. When you can, right? Again, it's a 30-second cooldown, so you might only get 1 or 2 in that Shark Infested Waters window, but we'll have to see with certain crit levels, but I can guarantee you at some crit level, Between the Eyes will be a better finisher than Dispatch when this buff is up. So that's kind of an interesting thing, how it can somewhat change your rotation based upon that proc, which again, I like those type of gameplays. We have Grand Melee here, increases your attack speed by 55% and your leech by 25%. So that's nice. You get some passive leech for some survivability, and you get attack speed by 55%. Again, very, very nice. Jolly Roger is the last one here. This causes Sinister Strike to have an additional 30% chance of striking an additional time for the duration. This basically gives you more procs for the pistol shot. is what it really does. So it kind of feels kind of cool where you'll basically Sinister Pistol, Sinister Spin Pistol to kind of build up your combo points. Feels really good. Again, I like this proc changing in rotation. I find that to be a very engaging play style in general. And so I like that a lot. And I like Roll the Bones, who I probably wouldn't take, or I hope we don't end up taking Slice and Dice, because again, I do think currently Roll the Bones, if they can balance the damage, is engaging. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch to what I think I would probably want to play with. So I would probably go something like this. Yes. Now again, I'm not saying this is by far the best DPS. In fact, across all of my tests, the best to the worst talent combination, and by the way, I tested probably like 15 different combinations of talents, were within 300 DPS. Right, my lowest one was, I believe, 1.9. My highest one was like 2.3. So it was 0.4, 400 DPS. Again, things aren't tuned, things aren't balanced. Those damage numbers can, of course, change. But it did seem as if you were playing the rotation in a very similar way, that the damage wasn't going to be too far off. But of course, the sims will tell us what the best combination would be. Alright, so let's show off a little bit of this rotation here. Let me make sure I have everything I need first. Yeah, get rid of that. And let's move Ghostly Strikes back to my bar. Alright. One other thing that I should mention is, again, I'm unsure if you're going to start with Blade Rush Stealth or you're going to use it to rush in the beginning. I still think you're going to stay Stealth, but again, I could be entirely wrong on that. Alright, so start off, of course, with the Ambush, get Adrenaline Rush going, start building up some combo points, get a Mark for Death in there, start building up, finish, gotta hit the wrong finisher. Here we go, Roll the Bones. So here you go, you can kind of see now this, like I was talking about with that Jolly Roger, how you get a lot of those procs. So again, you can see that I'm getting a lot of those free pistol shots there. Use one of these, get a Blade Rush, finish again. And this is basically it, right? So again, it's very much you Sinister Strike. If you have a pistol shot, you use it. Of course, you finish on 5 or 6 combos, depending on what talent you have. Alright, so next finisher will be another Roll the Bones. There we go. Got your bearing. But yeah, it feels really good. So you can see here how a lot of these abilities are done. I do a horrible job of keeping up Blade Rush, but I think it's fun. You have a lot of buttons. It feels really good. The energy regeneration in general, I think, is pretty good. The nice procs, I think, help a lot with this as well. And again, there's not too much to manage. Again, I'm a big add-on fan, and I was able to kind of do a pretty decent job of keeping up my rotation and learning the rotation without all those add-ons, right? So I think it feels really, really nice. And then you can see again, Adrenaline is back up again. And it feels good, right? When you have that, you really feel the extra energy. You can really kind of get at it a lot quicker. Get a Blade Rush in there as well. You can get a lot of energy. You can see I'm kind of capping here a little bit. But that's fun, right? You kind of have this kind of like steady, and then when you get these, buffs going, you get these cooldowns, you really feel like, okay, now I'm going. Now I'm moving strong. Alright, so let's vanish out of here. So again, you can see damage right around what I had said it would be. But yeah, so overall thoughts here are, first off, before I talk about that, let's talk about stats. So crits, just crits, again, it's one of those things like I mentioned where depending on how much crit you have with the Shark Infested Waters buff, it might change whether or not you use Between the Eyes or not in the rotation. We'll have to just wait and see. Haste. Rogue's been a class that haven't really cared for haste much, and I still think that's going to be the case. I just don't see haste being very valuable. I know they've changed haste scaling for poisons and bleeds, which again the other rogue specs are taking advantage of here, but Outlaw doesn't have any. And so while haste increases your attack speed, which again will have some synergy with both mastery and the combat potency here, right? Because again, the faster your offhands, the faster your main hands, the more of those procs you'll be getting. So again, that's nice, and there's going to be some synergy there, but I just don't think across the board, because you're already at that 1 second GCD, I don't know how much advantage. Versatility is versatility. Increasing your damage is always good. Mastery, again, same kind of thing here. I think that the extra damage is nice, but it's just extra damage, right? There's nothing really, again, a bit else here. Again, it does help with the procs of the free pistol shot, so again, that might be a part of the synergy there as well, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, I'm not going to make any comment on overall rankings. To sum this video up, my thoughts. I like it. It's a lot of fun. I think that it's very engaging. It has a nice cadence to it. It has a nice pace to it. I think the talents do a good job of modifying your play style depending on what you're taking. You can take Ghostly Strikes to have an extra ability. You can take Quick Draw, which is passive, which is you're doing more damage. Weapon Master, same kind of thing. It helps you increase your procs as well there. Blade Rush, Killing Spree, again, are interesting, fun abilities. I really do like the Blade Rush. I don't think we're taking Slice and Dice. I don't hope we don't. I really like Roll the Bones. I think it's a fun and engaging thing. But yeah, I think overall the spec's in a good place. It seems to be complete. It seems to have a lot of engagement. I like the fact that Roll the Bones might change our rotation as time goes on, depending on things when we're min and maxing. And a lot of things seem close. Like I mentioned, I wasn't able to tell much of a difference between my talent layouts, so there might be the option for varying playstyles. Again, I know we're always going to wait to see what the Sims say and go with that, but it should be noted that you're not going to, I think, be punished too much for taking other kind of talents. And again, there might be ways of minning and maxing different talent layouts to kind of be competitive. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please go ahead and leave me a like. I love engagement, so please go ahead and leave something down there in the comments for me. Let me know what you think, if there's anything I could have done better or improved upon. I love that feedback. Next video will probably be either Assassination or Subtlety. We'll have to see. And that should be up shortly.